think we need to recognise that violence has moved on, and a lot of assumptions are made about why certain things happen. And that's why I'm involved in a Youth Violence Commission, really doing some definitive data analysis and Safer Life survey, looking at why violence happens now. And parenting is very important. In fact, we've got young people who's hosting an event at City Hall today, the peer outreach team. And what we do is to make sure that young people are at the centre, so we know exactly why they can pick up a knife or a gun.
And what do they say?
They're saying that in a lot of ways is peer pressure and fear.
A knife crime epidemic in London in particular at the moment is largely driven by young black youth. Nobody's disputing that, right? You wouldn't dispute that?
Yeah, because a lot of the areas where crime is infested is where black communities have been ghettoised in a lot of ways.
Right, so if we accept that as an agreed fact, I'm trying to work out where we get to points of agreement here. There is clearly an issue there. Do you think that any of that is down to feckless fathers?
I think fathers to some extent, but I also think it's a lot of the safeguarding agencies that have been run into the ground, austerity, and then you've got these people who are grooming young people on such a major scale, because the social media is an accelerant to this whole virus.
Of youth crime, and we've got the mayoral election coming up. I don't know if you've been able to hear some of the debates and between the various candidates. What, in your view, would you look at if you had, if you were standing for mayor, say, what would you look at in terms of how could we combat youth crime? Is it an increase in youth clubs? Is it an increase in getting heavy on crime? Mixture of the two? What would your take
on
it be?
As I said before, you have to connect with, especially the target group. You're not going to arrest your way at the problem or stop and search your way at the problem, as a lot of the officers think. And even though there's no analysis to show there's a correlation between stop and search and knife crime. So as Tony Blair said, you've got to be tough on crime, but the causes of it. So you have to have early intervention and prevention programs. So you've got to bring that back in. That's why I set up Voyage Youth with other BPM members 20 years ago, to give back to our young people, to know their rights and responsibilities, to know, develop positive peer-to-peer mentoring, and to know they can change their environment, not become a product of it. So give them the skills and abilities. And we do that through our Young Leaders for Safer Cities program, which is a BTEC level 2 for year 9 students, 14, 15-year-olds. And we really do give young people an opportunity to go on the journey with us. And there's some we met in 2002, 2003, doing amazing jobs. Doctors, journalists, scientists like me. So we're really pleased with them. Some joined the police, even though we didn't do it as a recruiting thing, but we realized we've got to bring in our own intervention prevention program. It's also around changing the narrative, saying, it's a war on drugs, war on knives, guns and everything, which is true, but you need to reaching out to target group to reassure them, because at the moment, because of that disconnect I was speaking about, especially young people on the streets, they feel over-policed and underprotected. In our Voyage Youth program, that's something they say regularly. And there is also, they don't feel in that over-policed and underprotected piece, they don't feel confident in the justice system. And as a result of that, it ends up that they won't give evidence at court. They want him to go on an ID parade or even make a statement. And why would they? Because they think, well, police are disconnected. They're not relevant in my life. You can't make me feel safe. Why would I put myself on offer? And if they can't get me, if I do put myself forward, they'll try and get someone else associated. And I've had personal experience, even quite recently, where someone who's not involved in any form of, in fact, they're a teacher, and one of their students gets involved in a knife attack and is a suspect. And while he's on the run, they get wrong information that that teacher is family to that youngster who they taught years earlier. And that could have had, and that had risk implications. So, you know, I had to work with the police to ensure proper risk assessment. So I think they just don't understand the importance of that. So, you know, the impact that knife crime has, not just on the suspect and of course the victim. And, you know, when you have a killing or a life-changing injury, it impacts on both families, the suspect and the victim, but more for the victims, of course. And, you know, there's definitely an understanding to know the experience of people, so you're better equipped to deal with them in a relevant and progressive way to reduce reoffending. And so those early intervention prevention programs are very important. I think that there's definitely an importance to change the narrative and keep people connected, and don't try and alienate them and put fear in them, because they're already scared, you know, on the streets. They're already fearful of what's going on, scared of their peers more than anyone. So, you know, there's definitely, you know, you can't be doing the same things and expecting different results. As Einstein said, that's madness. So you have to be progressive. You've got to be, I think that what we call the public health approach, looking at people not just as prisoners or potential prisoners, but as patients, dealing with especially people who are going through mental health or any sort of psychotic episode. You know, because police are not very good at going to a situation and de-escalating and calming things down. They're more into escalating the situation, especially when they've been driving to the scene and with blue lights and sirens, and they start to get, you know, the red mist, as I see on a regular basis. And yeah, so there needs to be a reconfiguring of police back to what it used to be, that citizens focus type policing, and really reassure people that, yes, we know we've got a problem, we can do better, and ensure that we're going to deal with the areas that needs to be changed, you know, in the road cops, and instill on, you know, the bad apples, that the good apples are going to call them out and not be complicit. And all these sort of things, I actually helped Sadiq Khan in his mayor campaign. I was his police advisor, because I knew Sadiq from 2001, because when the Met investigated me, Sadiq was my lawyer. Yeah, it's in the book, so you'll get.
I haven't got there yet.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's so I actually was his police advisor leading up to his campaign, and I helped write the manifesto. And it's only when he got elected he sort of cut me out. But, you know, I anticipated that. Someone actually flagged it up for me, saying, "Watch this, he might change on you," and he did. But that's showbiz, you know. You move on. But my point was, I told Sadiq about the need for all of this work, that citizen focused work, and a public health approach. And I recognize police officers have to be trauma informed, so they're de-escalating things, not escalating, etc. And he went straight down the enforcement route with the commissioner. And it's only now they're turning it around, changing the narrative, understanding they have to engage the target group, especially young people, and those in urban areas, which invariably are Black and minority ethnic, because that's what we have seen in very hardened crime hotspots. We have minority groups normally live there, but it's not just color; it's class as well. So you'll see white working class living in these deprived areas. So it's really just being an asset-based approach, just like the public health, to sure you assign the right assets to the job, because I remember, and I'm close with this, when I was in Hackney, I said, if I'm dealing with a certain incident, I don't want anyone turning up with blue lights and sirens, because you just escalating the whole thing. Just, obviously, if you have to get there fast and you have to put on the lights and sirens just to get there safely, fine. But switch it off, even take off your helmet or anything that's going to spark a reaction. And I'm saying being softly and let people just get away with things, but I'm just saying just change the emphasis, that light touch, as I said, as with the Olympic Games, because it makes such a difference. And it's around relationships. As I said, we're peacemakers after all. Try and build relationships that people are seen as public, maybe patients, and not just potential prisoners.
Fantastic answer. And I think it kind of leads on to my next question, which is about, we've got the police force doing what they're being told to do, or what they need to do, or what do you think, or how do you think churches and faith groups can also be involved to try and change the narrative that you're talking about? What is our responsibility as people that are peacemakers, as you said earlier? What do you think our responsibility as churchgoers should be, or the church?
Well, I think they have to show faith in action. That's why I was heavily involved in street pastors. Again, around the 2002 mark, I worked with Les Isaacs, who set up the street pastors over here, where you train members of the church to have a certain understanding of policing, and not to say they're going to be police officers, but they're community advocates. And it's that advocacy work, building relationships. So it's taking churchgoers outside the walls and being and a form of outreach. And I remember I used to patrol with the street pastors when I was at Hackney as a superintendent. And it's amazing how people are telling their stories and what their problem is, their addiction. Sometimes they would say, "Excuse me," to the pastor or the churchgoer and the street pastor, and then they go around the corner and then have their addiction and come back, and have this conversation, So very sort of respectful to them. And so I think that there's definitely a need to be more out-facing, because people need answers to their problems, and churches, I believe, are more than equipped to deal with these issues, especially if they're trained like we used to do with the street pastors. It's still going from my understanding, and I was glad to be involved in those first few years. I think also it's around being, again, just like police, because police and the church, it's people business. You have to be people orientated, and I think the way in which this is seen to be more and more, especially how church numbers are going down. It's got to be a relevant church. It has to be showing that you can deal with society has moved on. I mean, I did an outreach program in 2006 where I brought over Nicky Cruz. Nicky Cruz, you might know, is a gang evangelist from the 60s. And they did a film on him, The Sword and the Switchblade. Well, it's a volcano film. And Nicky's still active, even in, I think he's nearly 80, if not more. Wow. And in 2006, 15 years ago, brought him over and his outreach team called Truce, which stands for To Reach Urban Communities Everywhere. And the way in which churches got involved in that, just for that 4-week period, in Hackney and Waltham Forest. We did 2 boroughs, and it was amazing how the response of the churches and people, and basically it was musical outreach. So they'd go into an estate with the music set up and the songs and testimonies, and it'd be very short, 20-minute bursts, and then move on to another estate or another venue. And it was all outdoors. It wasn't in churches. Some of the events in the evening were in churches or certain venues, but most of it was outdoors during the day. And it had an amazing response of young people. And I think that shows that churches can, people can respond to church people who are there at the time and place of need. And it's not a 9 to 5 weekends off type thing. It's 24/7, 365. And especially when it comes to violence on our streets, because a lot of young people who have been involved in negative peer groups and violence, which can lead to gangs, their parents are God-fearing people going to churches. Some of them, the youngsters, go to church on a Sunday and go back to their madness during the week. Up Periscope on a Sunday and submerge back down into the madness during the week. So. But, if you get churches who really can make that difference and understand the community and will think outside the box, how do we engage with people and, make, and especially those with a very strong, vibrant youth branch or section, they're normally better equipped to know what's happening on the ground, maybe be quite preemptive in settling beefs before they get into a real problem, because we've lost youth clubs and youth workers. Churches can actually fill the gap to some extent. I know they're trying to bring back your local authority youth workers and some forms of youth club, even though, things have moved on. Young people don't congregate in youth clubs like they used to. So, there's different ways in which you can engage, maybe through the social media, etc. So I think churches need to be social media savvy. And in fact, this week, there was a program, I think it was Panorama, with Claire Myrie talking about how the church is institutionally racist, and they're finally starting to acknowledge it. Again, like police, they're in denial. And hopefully they will get an understanding of, similar to police, there's an inextricable link between how you serve the needs of your diverse personnel, so you're better equipped to serve the needs of a diverse public. And, if you don't treat your diverse personnel right, people are not going to connect with your organization, whether it's the police or the church, and they're not even going to think of joining your ranks if they think that, it's a hostile environment and you're not going to make real steps to nurture and support and not only just survive, but strive and achieve a true potential. So I think churches have got similar sort of process of change. They've been around much longer than police, but it's they've been wired in a similar way to police. It's there to protect the haves from the have-nots. That's how the police were constructed. But in 1829, when the Met Police was developed. Hold on. Grandson's a bit loud. The Home Secretary, Sir Robert Peel, said something very profound. He said, "The police are the public, and the public are the police." Well, the churches can think that. The churches need to understand that people out there are part of your church, and there has to be that contract. There has to be that compact that you can't do it alone. You've got to understand the target group and engage, and it has to be sustainable and relevant. So it's challenging times all around.
So much, Leroy, for just being such an amazing guest and sharing your life experiences with us. One last question I'd like to ask you is that in your autobiography, you use a number of different Bible verses and related these to your life experiences. Why do you think the Bible is relevant and can provide answers to life's most difficult questions?
Well, the Bible is a collection of stories which, Christ was very good at sort of painting pictures for people. And it wasn't just, it was open to interpretation and letting people put themselves in that context. And that's why, I could relate to certain characters in the book, because I think it's very relevant to this day, the challenges we face now. So I wanted to show my faith is very important to me, and my upbringing. My mother was very God-fearing, similar to my dad, but she was one that sang hymns and quoted Bible verses, and I've got a prayer warrior of a wife as well. So and my daughter. The boys are not that explicit with their faith. I mean, they are. They've all committed themselves to their faith. But our whole family is understanding the importance of honoring God, so He'll honor you. And I think it's quite clear how my life has played out, that being purposeful in the commission He gives you, he will, if He puts you in that position, he will protect you. You're not going to be on your own. And I remember going into a lot of challenging situations, and I would be going in, whether it's meeting with a commissioner, the Home Secretary, or whoever it may be, or even quite risky situation involving, potential risk with weapons and stuff. And I have practical approach to my faith and say, listen, wherever ground I'm going into, that's God's holy ground. So I claim in that land. I'm claiming that spot. So when I enter, I'm not entering on my own. I've got the holy nation, the royal priesthood with me. So I'm outnumbering them. They don't realize it, because I'm a very spiritual person. So I'm sure that, well, it's never failed me yet. I'm 64 now, so I'm not thinking that it's going to fail me now, because he's been with me through thick and thin. And that sort of relationship, I think I just want to put across in the book, not to be pretentious. And I think that's why I wanted a ghostwriter, George Luke, because, he's a Christian guy. He's been, and he's not your, some of his tweets are quite colourful, and I think, you're supposed to be a Christian? Anyway, but I like him because he's edgy, and he loves his different alternative music, rock music, all this thing, because he's in the media and stuff. And George was my sort of North Star, just to say, listen, am I really on point here, or am I going, off due north? Am I going off point here, off piece, as they say in skiing? And because sometimes you think, oh, no, that doesn't make sense, Leroy. Whatever you're trying to say doesn't, or let's say it in a different way, or something like that. So I was bouncing ideas off him just to say, listen, this is my interpretation. Is it going to be seen really zany or stupid or mad, or people can't relate to it? So that for me was one of the reasons why George as the ghostwriter, just to give me that sort of reality check. And I think the combination of the two of us really, really worked.
Thank you for such an exceptional interview, Leroy. It's just been an honor to have you on. You are just a legendary figure within policing, paving the way for our community. So thank you for being so open and transparent in your answers. And thank you for just providing us with just such a great interview.
No, it's a pleasure being here. Really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully it's not too sort of dull. I don't know if anyone wants them, I was fighting this person, and actually, as I said, if they really, the film is great. I love the film, John playing me and everything, but it's still the starter. The main course is that bad boy at the back there, you know, the book. And I would like to think that, you know, it will give some pointers and advice and guidance, and know that even though people might think, oh, you know, what an eventful life, there were some real sort of challenges, and I had to really dig deep. Sometimes I still am, which is good. I don't want to be thinking all is fine and things can't happen. I know, you know, life doesn't work that way. You can always have those curveballs. So, no, I've really enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully a few people, if not one or two, might just get something out of it.
Thank you so much, Leroy. And
All right. All right.
Thank
You take care.